Hello and happy Thursday. Welcome to our today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Maggie Nielsen and I'm here with Purse Strings. Purse Strings goes live in our group every week to provide some financial education, know-how, knowledge. And all of this month, we've been talking about financially surviving a divorce, which has been a ton of great information. So we're going to wrap up the month with Donna today and to talk about the steps to financially prepare for a divorce, since we've kind of learned about, some of the fears that we go through and some of the professionals that we use. Now, these are really some actionable steps that we can take, which is great. And so whenever you need then a professional to go put things in transition or transaction, we have our Purse Strings approved professionals who love to work with our communities of women, and Donna is one of them. So we're so excited to have you on today. So before we jump in, could you give a little intro about who you are and what you do?
Yep. Thank you so much for the warm welcome here. I'm excited to take part. So hi, everybody. I am Donna Kendrick. I am the owner of Sephton Financial. That is my maiden name. And we specialize in financial planning for families in transition. So back in 2013, I had lost my husband suddenly, and a few years later decided, I think I need to flip my career upside down on its head. And I started doing financial advice and planning for families in transition. So divorce, widowhood, blending families. And I am excited to be here to go through some checklists with you.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I think a lot of great information. So I'm excited to dive in. And anyone listening, as always, just pop a question in the chat if you have it. We're more than welcome to take questions as well. So it looks like we kind of have 6 steps to kind of go through here. So what's kind of the first step when kind of preparing financially for divorce?
Yeah, I always like to say the very first step, like when the idea starts coming to your head, like, ooh, I think we might be going there. And it could be a very happy thought at the same time, but it is gathering your information. So I say first go to, I hope everyone has a fireproof box or a safe in their house. Go there. Start getting copies of marriage license, birth certificates, social security cards, taxes, insurances, employment information. I remember saying when I lost my husband that I had a tote bag and it had all my important stuff in it because I just didn't know what life insurance needed and what social security needed. So I just carried it all with me and I was a nervous wreck carrying it all everywhere. But that's what you want. You want to at least have digital copies, if not photos, of all of that information, have it organized. If it's not in that safe, go looking for it. That's where you start to gather that information. That's my very first step.
All right, that's a great step. And yeah, I'm just imagining all these papers just like a kid in school, they're just busting out of the bag, but you never know what you need. They always ask you for some odd code or account number that you don't have from 1,000 years ago. So I understand, but yeah, you got to get all those documents.
Yeah, and in this digital age, a big part of that is getting down passwords and websites, right? Like, where's that inventory? Because sometimes you can have a password change and you're locked out of information.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one before. All right, so first step is to gather all your documents. What would be the second step?
So this is in no particular order, but I like to say the second step is also realizing, so we've just got our the basic documents of what makes us on paper. Let's look at your income and your expenses. What's your income? What's your spouse's income? What do you have on a daily basis, a monthly basis, a recurring basis that are your expenses? On most situations and in most couples, there's one person who runs that, one person who's the control panel. And if it's not you, this is the time to start identifying those flows of income, because later on we're going to be saying, okay, as a single, what's your budget? So until you know your budget as a couple, it's going to be very hard to know your budget as a single. Cool.
Right. And you really have to go through that and figure it out because there's so many easy things to skip over these days, just small nuances or, little things add up, especially if you have kids or just paying for the Wi-Fi or all these other things that just snowball in there.
Yeah, 100%. And so I just recently got remarried. I remember sitting down with my husband being like, okay, almost everything is direct billed on the American Express. So use that as your guide path. But then, of course, there's two of them that's like a direct bill payer. That's the only way they'll take
Hmm.
the information. He's like, but I thought you said it was all on American Express.
I'm
Make
doing
that.
my
I'm
best.
like, I'm trying, buddy. I am the keeper of the information. I'm a planner. It's in my name. But that's really what you need to be doing is just mapping it out and understanding that expenses and where you are right now. And that would flow right into that bigger picture of knowing your assets and liabilities. And that's another
Yep.
step in there. So assets, what do we own? Liabilities, what do we owe? We own things like our cars and our houses. Our liabilities are the mortgage, the car loan, the credit cards, the student loans for our kids or ourselves. And that can be a big one and that can be a bit overwhelming. But I like to say, like, take it in chunks. Don't overwhelm
Yeah.
yourself. Do a brain dump, put the paper aside, come back, do another brain dump. And when you go through, you're going through the safe, you'll be finding titles for the car, right? And settlement
Right.
paperwork. That'll trigger some of that. But the big thing for asset and liabilities is to know who owns it. Is it in your name? Is it in your spouse's name? Or is it in both your name?
Yeah.
Because as we go through further steps in the divorce, that will become very important. Knowing how much we paid for something originally versus what it's worth now. Did we own it before marriage? Or did it something that we owned during the marriage? Little
Mhm.
check boxes, color coded up if you need to. Yeah, and just to let everyone know too, if you need a PDF of this checklist, you can get that on my website too. So it's Sephton Financial /resources. You can free download it. So
Awesome. We'll make sure to get that in the chat once this is over.
yep.
Um, but yeah, knowing kind of where you stand and some of those big things to know, like, is your name on the house? Is
Yeah.
your name actually on that car, or is that the car you drive? Because those are some things I have been learning that get very detailed, and there is a reason why your name is not on the house, and they have their own agenda.
Yeah.
So these are things you want to really know about for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't ask the questions when we don't know, right?
Right.
Or if we think our name's on the mortgage, we automatically think our name's on the title of the house. It might not
Hmm.
be. And until you start asking these questions and attending free webinars like this, you don't know what questions to ask. And we love that person. We're going to trust them most likely.
Right.
Um, and so it's really a hard time to digest trying to peel apart that information if it's not an amicable situation. So,
I
yeah.
could see how that would be difficult for
Yep.
sure. But yeah, you don't always know. You don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
so part of that, these is just to bring up that conversation. So you're like, oh, I know to know that.
Yeah, and knowing
Um,
how things are titled and when did we buy it in the basis, that pays attention to one of those other steps of realizing what state you live in. Are you in a
mm,
community property state or a common law state? So I'm not an attorney, but in general, there's community property states. I think it's like Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, Wisconsin, and maybe Puerto Rico. I think they're, and then there's three that are variable, and that's like Alabama, South Dakota, and Tennessee that can go either way. So community
oh,
property state is pretty much anything earned during the marriage, 50-50, right?
mhm.
We've got some of those high net worth people getting married and 50-50.
Yeah.
And then you have common law states or separate states. And that's pretty much saying whatever's titled belongs to you. Whatever you came to the marriage with belongs to you. So when we step back into that asset and liability, whose name is the loan in? Whose name is the house
Mm,
in? Right? That's what you're saying, what you're learning. But well, is that the car I drive or the car I own? Right?
right.
That's
Right.
very much that.
And it is important to think about what state you are in. And we do have to bring that up sometimes because you might hear about your girlfriend and her divorce, but she might have lived in, Maine, where it's different, in Arizona or whatever it may be. So you don't always want to take just, a girlfriend's opinion or experience, because it could just be totally different legal
Yeah. We call that
rules.
water cooler conversation, right? Like when
Yeah.
everyone has some downtime and sharing those conversations, we usually learn a lot. That's what so many of times we learn those questions to ask. But I always say find a professional,
Yep.
find a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, your accountant, a lawyer, your financial planner, and ask them. Write them down. There's no
Right.
stupid questions. It might be a bulleted email that you can get a response back in 5 minutes. and it'll help give you some peace of mind. So start a journal, start writing those questions, put it on notes on your cell phone, whatever you need to. But don't believe everything as the word. It's
Yeah,
not always that way.
it is not always that way. Okay, I think we're on tip maybe like 5.
Yeah, I think we
Um,
are.
Alrighty, what's tip number 5?
Tip number 5 is the family home, right? So there are 2 factors we have to take into consideration, because lots of times we have to just determine, can we afford it, right?
Right.
That's the main question. And then we have to see emotionally, do we want to stay there or do we not?
Mhm.
And those both will probably lead us to how we make the decision. As a financial planner, I look at the numbers, right? But I
Right.
can't ignore the emotion behind it. So, how do I afford the house? Remember, we talked about income and expenses prior.
Mhm.
Well, let's do a what if scenario of if the divorce goes through and this is my income that I'm looking at. You take into consideration your own income. If there's alimony that's coming
Mhm.
through, and alimony is not something that's always guaranteed, it can be a negotiable. And many of times, your attorney or even local states can give you guidance on if you're married
Mhm.
X amount of time and you are responsible for X percentage of the income of the family. How much is that worth? Child support, which would actually would
Mhm.
come into child custody. And remember, child support, you cannot waive a child's right to support. So it's not really a negotiation within the settlement. It
Yeah.
can be, but someone can always come back and seek child support. The same
Mhm.
can't always be said for alimony. So you want to make sure you have an understanding of child custody, what the child support would be. And then what's the cost of the home, right? What equity
Mhm.
do we have in it? Will I be able to afford that mortgage on my own?
Mhm.
Because we often, many of times, have the cost of healthcare. That's something you have to consider in
Yep.
divorce, right? Maybe you were on your spouse's healthcare and you're not working full time. You don't qualify with your employer. How am I going to afford that, right?
It's expensive.
It is. It really is. I have my
Yeah.
own
I have
business.
my own, and I'm telling you that
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't want to forget that payment.
100%. And one of the basics when I always say, because it is like, can I keep the family home? It's emotional. It's where you raised your kids. It's where you
Mhm.
guys went together, and you might feel either way. Like, yeah, I'm going. You might be better to stay, right?
Mhm.
Or I want to stay, and you might not be able to. But start with getting your credit score. So you can go to
Yeah.
www.annualcreditreport.com, I think it is, or org. But you can get your credit score that way. And each of the 3 agencies can each give you a free credit report.
Mhm.
Even if the score isn't involved, we can always get that usually off of one of our credit cards, a FICO score. But you want to get that credit check, pretty much your credit
Yeah.
report, and really see where you are. I also say that because I should jump into number 1 when we're looking into our safe. Everybody should run their credit report every year, because
Yeah.
that really will give you an inventory of what accounts are open, what balance is available on them, and what you have. Many of times spouses might have quote unquote hidden assets or hidden accounts that we don't know about. And a
Yeah.
credit report is a great way to start that investigation.
And it's very important, and I think it's easy to misunderstand that. If somebody took out a credit card and spent all the money, that's kind of both under your names. But you have to keep up your own credit score. Your credit scores don't merge, and so I know some women, when they come out of divorce, kind of have to work on raising their credit score before they get the house or whatever those things are. So it's interesting just to keep track of, just like you said, throughout the marriage. Because it's interesting how they can affect each other, but they're also individual.
Yep, 100%. And we say everyone has an individual credit score, but
Mhm.
sometimes joint accounts can impact you both.
Yep, and you
Mhm.
got to know that one for sure
You
before
do.
it gets you.
You definitely do.
Um,
And I always say, like, when you file divorce, like it's almost like drawing a line in the sand. You want to know exactly where you stand.
exactly.
And whether you have an attorney, I think that was one of our points too, whether you don't need an attorney, that's
Mhm.
situational many of times.
Right.
I'm an optimist who worries. I like getting the guidance of professional attorneys and encourage many of my clients to do it. But maybe you weren't married that long, and it's very amiable, and
Right.
you are just going to separate ways. Many of times you can probably do that on your own, or through a mediator. But
Right.
just know your rights, know your laws, and maybe use a combination of both mediator and a lawyer to help you with the process.
Yeah, and that's a great way to know about the different ways you can get divorced, because it's not just always going to hiring an attorney and going to court right away.
Yeah.
So it's always good to know all those professionals who can help you out.
Yeah. And you always want to
Um,
ask the professionals too, like how are they paid? Whether it's
of
hourly,
course,
is there a retainer up front? Can you use them just for actually producing the paperwork if you and your spouse agree on the terms? So good questions
yeah,
to ask. Most attorneys will give you a good half hour to an hour of a consult for free. Get a
yep.
feel for them. Make sure you can work with them.
And yeah, it's not a silly question. I think it's sometimes, be like, I don't want to be weird asking them how they get paid. Like that's a normal question for them to answer. They're expected to answer it. We understand dealing with money can be nerve wracking. So if you don't feel comfortable asking them that question, it's probably not the right professional.
That's a good point. Very good point. I always say too, the cost of the attorney might save you a lot in the long run.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yep, yep.
And then I think you had one more tip on here about life insurance, which I would love to hear.
Yeah, so there's a huge tip on life insurance. So we brought up alimony, right?
Hmm.
So you say, okay, I'm going to keep the house and I can afford it because I'm going to have alimony for 10 years. I was married for 20 and here we go. I'm outside. There's a leaf that just hit my head. But no. And so what you want to make sure you do is that you get life insurance, either term or permanent, on that spouse who will be paying the alimony, so that if something happens to him or her, that you will still get those proceeds. And that would be something on an annual basis that you have to prove that you've paid for and that it is up and running. Many people skip that point, make decisions on life. God forbid something happens to the then ex-spouse, there's no income. And
Right.
you have created your plan around that. And that also goes for retirement planning, right? So that's a
Mhm.
big chunk of assets and liability. So what retirement accounts do we have, right? Can we roll it over? Usually if you roll it from one retirement account to another, there's no taxable consequences. You
Right.
start taking withdrawals before you're 59 and a half, whew, there can be some major
Yeah.
consequences. There's also some caveats sometimes of, can you take a distribution without the 10% penalty before it rolls into a quadro? So we
Mm.
always say, talk to a qualified professional, talk to a CDFA that maybe your
Yeah.
attorney works with to get that in line. And also know Social Security rules. You might be eligible later in life for Social Security on that ex-spouse. Brings me back to life insurance. That might be also a great way to guarantee yourself some income should something happen to an ex-spouse. Yep.
Yeah. That's a great piece of advice. And when I learned about the Social Security thing as well, it was really interesting. And so, again, you don't know what you don't know. You want to talk to these professionals to get the nitty gritty things, because we don't want to leave money on the table.
No, nope.
Um,
And for many of these situations, one of us, if we've had children in the relationship, has taken a step back from their career.
right.
And so with that, we have allowed the other spouse to increase their income in their career. That's where that
Yeah.
Social Security benefit can even help in too, because they might have a bigger benefit from you or bigger benefit than you at the time of retirement. It works both ways.
Right. Right. Stepping out, taking care of those kids, it's a full-time job.
It sure is.
But these were some great pieces of advice to help women kind of get started in this process. One more question I wanted to ask you is, I know you keep talking about a CDFA and I know you have the certificate. Could you just share with our audience quick of like what it is and how this kind of professional might help you in the divorce process?
Yeah, sure. So a CDFA is a certified divorce financial analyst. So many of times it's financial advisors like myself that have taken additional training, coursework, as well as ethical training. And we have an annual requirement for additional training and education. But the role of the CDFA can work many different ways. How I would work with my clients is that I was actually work with their attorney. So I'm behind the scenes. So the attorney is actually getting all the information on assets, liabilities, income, length of marriage, retirement accounts, and they give all that information to me. And I do the mathematical calculations behind the scenes
Mhm.
to really expand on where assets lie, what is the tax deferred or tax free structure to them. And we help the attorneys give guidance to their clients in reference to proposed settlements or in reference to the finances at hand. And then your attorney will move that forward. I've also had many CDFA colleagues that work as mediators too. So it's nice to have somebody with that designation because they
Mhm.
kind of know the fine tune, where to step, what to look for, right? We don't know
Yeah.
what we don't know. And to see CDFAs working as mediators too, I think that's just a wonderful combination of knowledge, expertise, and kindness.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I appreciate you sharing that because it's definitely something newer, and so I don't think everyone always knows about. So I always like to get that information out there. So I appreciate you going over all these tips today. Is there any last piece of advice that you want to make sure we get out today?
I just think for anyone who's considering a divorce, take your time, right? There's a lot of emotions going when I work so closely with widows, and I always say, oh, no immediate decisions in the first year. Like,
Yeah.
do what you need to do, but no big ones. When you're in a divorce, you are making big ones in the middle of all of this emotion. So, find a listening ear, right? We talk about the water cooler, but sometimes you need that best friend to to go out to dinner with, to sit in the car and to hear you out, so you can brain dump, or find a good counselor because you are
Mhm.
making some big decisions in the midst of a very emotional time. So have some grace with yourself.
That's great advice. I love it. So thank you for coming on today. Donna is one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can email her. Her email's been at the bottom. Otherwise, you can check her out on our site, pursestrings.co. And that is kind of going to wrap up our month of financially surviving a divorce. There's always these great professionals to reach out to. And we will be back here again next week, starting our new month topic of all things stay-at-home moms need to know.
Ooh, good one. Good topic.
Yeah, so we'll see you there, and that's going to be another one to dive into. So I can't wait to get started. So thank you again, Donna, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Thank you,
Bye.
Maggie. Bye, everybody.